hear me or see me? Thank you, Abbas. Thank you. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Ethilwe. Wonderful. All right. So on behalf of the ICF Kenya Charter chapter, thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We will be talking about team coaching, coaching the entity and not just the individuals. My name is Lynn Gitahi. I am a leadership coach and I serve as the ICF Kenya Chapter Membership Director and Secretary as well. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this conversation. I think it's going to be very, very valuable. So this is a conversation that's part of our ongoing International Coaching Week series as we celebrate ICW this year. This happens to be our 5th webinar of 7. If you missed the others, look out for recordings, and you are very welcome to join us for the future sessions. So a brief mention on International Coaching Week in case you're new here or haven't been with us in the past sessions. Throughout this week, ICF all around the world hosts conversations that explore how coaching is shaping leadership, organizations, education, communities, and more. We have already had some rich discussions on Educator as Coach, on DEIB, on coaching adolescents and young adults, and the intersection of coaching and public speaking. Today, we'll be turning our attention to teams in organizations. And we will not stop there because tomorrow we will be hosting this amazing and interesting session on human-centered AI, how HR and coaches, and I would probably say even parents, can drive ethical high-impact transformation. And as well, we do have one more happening on Monday next week at the same time, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., we will be hosting none other than Abraham Ongenge, who is the acting CEO of Stanbic Bank and also head of personal and private banking. He will be talking about beyond management, coaching as the new leadership standard. So join us for that as we explore deeper how leader as coach looks at the highest levels of business. And feel free to register for these sessions. We will share the link in the chat as we go along. Now, before we begin, quick housekeeping note, this session is being recorded with the intention of sharing it on social media, particularly YouTube. So please be aware of that. Do keep your microphones muted unless you are invited to speak, wish to ask a question or answer a question, but allow us to invite you to speak. And on that note, if you do have questions throughout the session, please post them in the chat. We'll be keeping an eye out for them. And we'll be able to share and address them at the end during the Q&A session. So that you can join the room, we would love to see your faces and see who's joining us. So if you're able to, please go ahead and turn your camera on, and we will be happy to have you. So we aim to wrap up at around 1:50 p.m. Oh, great to see you, Anyeve. Thank you. Great to see you, Christabel. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. So we aim to wrap up at about 1:50 and give some time to Q&A. I believe there'll probably be quite some number of questions. So, just take note of that. All right. And because you did not come to listen to me, it is my pleasure to bring or to introduce you to the speakers of today's conversation. So we will be navigating the topic of team coaching and looking at teams as one entity that has its own identity, that has its own nuances. And to navigate us through that conversation, we have none other than Inayat Abbas. He is an executive coach, relationship systems coach, and leadership practitioner with a deeply diverse professional background. Abbas is an ICF ACC, that's an associate certified coach, a certified professional coactive coach, that's CPCC, and an organizational and relationship systems coach, ORSC. He also holds a practitioner diploma from the Academy of Executive Coaching and is trained in clean language, in NLP or neuro-linguistic programming, in Keirsey temperament, and in the multi-brain integration techniques, MBIT. In addition to his work as a coach, Abbas brings over 25 years of experience as an electrical engineer, including 17 years serving as a director and CEO, giving him firsthand experience leading teams and navigating organizational complexity. He's also a trained marital and civil mediator, accredited in both Kenya and the UK. His work today focuses on executive life and relationship coaching, helping individuals arrive to a holistic understanding of the various relationships they have with themselves. So please join me in giving a warm, warm welcome to Inayat as he joins us here on the stage. Thank you, thank you. And our second speaker is Refilwe Mokonyani. I really hope I got it right. She is joining us all the way from the Rainbow Nation, that is South Africa. Refilwe is an organizational and relationship systems coach and the co-director at CRR Africa. CRR Africa is a Pan-African institute that advances systems-inspired leadership and team coaching across the continent. So Refilwe is passionate about human development, helping individuals, teams, and organizations build healthier, more effective relationships. And her work spans workplaces, schools, communities, and families, where she helps people navigate complexity through stronger relational systems. Refilwe holds a background in information systems, having begun her career in the corporate IT space before she transitioned into human systems work. She is trained in ORSC, and is also a licensed facilitator with More to Life, bringing both technical and relational depth to her work. Through her leadership at CRR Africa, she equips coaches and leaders across Africa with the tools to work effectively with teams as living systems. I'm really curious to learn more about that term, living systems. So please join me in welcoming Refilwe here with us. Karibu sana, Refilwe and Inayat. And at this point, just allow me to stop sharing so that they can join us. Yeah, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, and maybe good evening to everybody joining us from wherever you are in the world. Before we start off, we'd like to just help you get into an internal check. And please take a few moments to look at the weather inside you. What's the weather like inside you, and how does this affect your environment? And please feel free to share in the chat. Thank you, Anjiro.
Good, joyful. Thank you, Anne.
Clear and sunny, Diana.
Calm nice and quiet.
Rain is calm in the storm.
Gray and brewing for a storm. Or perhaps it will blow over. Thank you, Cassie. We've got sunny and calm, a bit turbulent, warm, bright.
And as you're reflecting on that, also reflect, how does this weather inside you affect your environment? The storm was yesterday. Sunny, warm, and happy.
But I think we have... Okay, so I thought there were more that would be coming.
Makes me feel eager and curious.
I bring my weather with me, indeed.
Of course, the guru, Jared, speaking. And what is your understanding of team coaching? There isn't a right or a wrong answer. It's just, what is your understanding of team coaching?
Maybe I was thinking we can invite people to share briefly, though, so we don't take long. So you can either type or share by audio channel.
Yes, please feel free. Either unmute yourself and share verbally, or like Diana shared, working with teams to address challenges they have. Coaching people focused on a common goal from Anne Gifford. Creating synergy, guiding a group of individuals that have interconnected responsibilities and accountabilities to work more effectively.
Working with teams to bring out the strength in each and how they can leverage on this combined strength.
Differs from group coaching in that we coach the team objective rather than the individual teammate goals.
I'm loving how people are quick on their fingers. I would have preferred to to verbalize. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your shares. So we've got one more methodology of improving team effectiveness. Yeah, thank you, Doris. So with this said, yeah, the invitation was just, what we've just done is for you to experience your own internal system, right? What is your internal weather? How is it impacting the environment? And obviously we'll get into the topic of team coaching in a moment. And as human beings, we are very much relational. We relate everywhere at home, with our families, we relate at work, with colleagues. So we basically are relational beings. And what we're getting into is, why does coaching matter? You know, it matters because primarily of what I just expressed now, that we are relational beings. So, for example, in a work context, you find a team is in itself a human relationship entity, and we term it a system as well, as you will hear us probably more say referencing system. So a team is a human relationship system or entity. So that's primarily like the simplest definition we can give. And beyond even teams at work, we have relationships even at home. We relate with our family members or spouses even, or family members and kids, even at family setups. When you go beyond the two places, we even are social beings. We have friends, we are in social clubs. So relationships are part of our everyday life. And this is where the type of team coaches that we'll be talking about is focusing on the relationship system within the different relationship systems.
Next slide, please. So this is our plan for today. Why team coaching matters, what is ORSC, the three intelligences, the aquarium, ORSC and ICF, team competencies, and to wind it up, question and answers. Next slide, please. Why team coaching matters. As Rafil said, as humans, we are always in a relationship. We cannot not be in a relationship. Even when we're sitting alone and on an island, we are in a relationship with ourselves. And we're social beings, but we're created that way, to be in a relationship with people throughout. And by definition, a relationship is two or more people who have got the same goal. And a simple example could be, I go to watch a movie. I'm in a relationship with the person sitting next to me because our goal is to watch that movie. And that relationship is sometimes called an entity. We call it a system. Some call it a relationship. And team performance requires not only technical skills, but also the human connection. Metaphorically, imagine a car. A car is made up of so many parts, and each part needs to do its part needs to play its role for the whole car to move. So when we look at the individuals, they're like the individual parts, the gearbox, cylinders, whatever, that then build up the whole car. And symptoms often appear in individuals, can and affect the whole entity. In our world of today, things are moving very fast. We need to look at the entire system. Like they say, the strength, a chain is as strong as its weakest link. Rafilo, you're back. Yeah, you had frozen for some time.
Yes, yeah, apologies. So where have you left? Have you gone through the why team matters? Apologies, it broke quite a bit there.
I'm moving through that. I'm going through that. And team awareness can help sense beyond the individuals and look at the connection between the people, because that's what holds the entire team together. ORSC shifts coaching from working with the individual to working with the intelligence of the entity, the system itself. Next slide, please. What is ORSC?
Yeah, this is taking us into what ORSC is. So ORSC, it's basically an acronym which stands for Organization and Relationship System Coaching. So this is a modality that was developed by Faith Fuller and Marita Frijon under the company CRR Global. So CRR is also an acronym on its own. I won't go into it now. So in essence, ORSC in itself is a modality, a robust coaching modality that focuses on team coaching and relationship entities. And that with that we mean where two or more people have a common purpose, be it a couple, it could be a family or teams in the case of workplaces. And it's one of the very first ICF accredited team coaching trainings, which happened in early 2000s. So we have over 2 decades of existence. And within the continent, CRR Africa is exclusively licensed to provide the trainings across the continent. So we'll expand more into and sharing with you more about the modality of ORSC, ORSC. We call it ORSC for short. Yeah, that's basically the focus, and it will answer the question why team coaching matters in essence.
We have 3 kinds of intelligences. And we at ORSC focus on RSI. And the 3 intelligences are emotional intelligence, your intelligence, which is very common, EQ as it's also known. We all know about EQ, how it works, what it is. And then SI, relationship with others. And as ORSC practitioners, we focus on the relationship intelligence. What does that mean? Next slide, please. So we have 5 principles that we adhere to, and they're up there on the screen for you. And I'll just expound on them a little. Relationships systems rely on roles and their organization and execution, which means that they are roles that belong to the relationship, to the system, to the entity, not the individuals. A very good example is how the teacher became the student and the student became the teacher at times of COVID. Many teachers were not very tech savvy at that time. And it was the students, the so-called students, who were helping the teachers. Another example is in a family setup. Sometimes we have, traditionally, the man is supposed to be the breadwinner and the lady is supposed to be the housekeeper. That's traditional. But things have changed. And in some cases, something happens to the man or the bread earner, and the other takes on the role, the bread earner, the housekeeper, or whatever else. So the role does not belong to an individual. It belongs to the system. You have to take the next two.
Yes, and the next principle, please go back. The next principle is each relationship system has its own unique identity and personality. So using the analogy, or even a car, because it was used, each car has like when I name BMW, you can think it has its own personality in a way. It's a brand, but it has its own personality. And when you mention Audi as an example, it has a different feel to even when you mention a Ferrari. So similarly with families or even teams, each team has an identity and a personality of its own. So you can never ever have two different teams or entities having the same personality. Each one is unique in identity and in personality as well.
Relationships systems are in a constant state of change, emergence, which means that we're always changing. The relationship is always changing. The relationship, Rafilu and I myself started just when this webinar started, is different from when it was what it was at that time and what it is now. And this goes very well with when I'm working with couples. I help them understand this, that yes, you love each other, you've been together for a certain time, and you want things to be the way they are, but the relationship is constantly changing. And those of you in Nairobi are probably looking outside the window already wondering, is it going to rain today evening? And we're preparing for that. If it's going to rain, traffic's going to be madness. So leave the office early or sit in late so that you don't get stuck in the road. So if we're preparing for the weather to change, why do we not prepare, or why do we not accept that our relationship with my spouse, with my colleagues, is in a constant state of emergence, and I should be ready for that?
Precisely. And the next principle is relationship systems are naturally intelligent, generative, and creative. And I think most of us here are coaches. So the solutions lie within the coaches themselves. So even in a team, when I come in as a coach, we trust that that particular team or relationship system is naturally intelligent, creative, and generative. Meaning that with the work that we do in coaching, they will naturally know where to go to next and how to like if it's a problem solving, how to solve that problem. If it's a matter of going from good to great, how to get to that good to great state. So there's that level of trust that the team or the entity itself bears its own solutions.
Every member of the relationship system has a voice that represents them personally and the system. This means that even the voices that are not speaking have a voice and affect the system. Metaphorically, again, I pick a classroom. We have a classroom. We have those students who are eager to speak. Some of us were those. Some of us were those who sat quietly, sitting at the back. But we affect the whole system. And what we believe as ORSCs is that sometimes the system cannot speak for itself. It speaks through the people. And this principle clearly says that it represents their voice, the individual voice, and the voice of the system. We have to learn how to differentiate, is this my voice, or is this the voice of the system? And like Lynn said, if anybody has questions, we'll be taking them at the end. So if you do have questions, please put them in the chat. The aquarium. This is a metaphor we use when we're helping people understand how things work in a relationship. And we'll sit on this slide for a few minutes. What do we see here? Please feel free, unmute and tell me what you see, how many entities you see, or feel free to put in the chat.
The typing is not as fast this time.
Yeah.
What do you see on this image?
Okay, I see communication,
Communication, good
harmony, harmony.
I don't know. I see two fish that don't want to be there.
Two fish that don't want to be there. Thank you, Cassie.
There's awareness.
So when working with teams, we use this analogy, and for the purpose, because we have two fish, we look at two people in a team. This could be a couple, it could be a parent and a child, it could be two people at work. And now the fingers are moving. Thank you very much. As Oscars, there's something else in here, and that's the water. That's what's holding, that's keeping space for these two fish. The people who live very long lives in this world are people, researchers found people in the Himalayas, somewhere in some valley in the Himalayas, where women at 60 even give birth. So those of you women who are not yet 60, you can still give birth. Don't give up on it, man. There are people at 60 who are giving birth. People live up to 120 there.
Wow.
And one of the reasons, or maybe the reason, is fresh air. Very few roads, so people exercise, fresh food, clean water, the environment. As opposed to people living in cities like New Delhi or Beijing, which have got a very high level of pollution. What sometimes happens in a relationship is that, and I'll use myself as an example, things are not working out with me and my wife, chuck her, bring another woman in. But if the water's contaminated, it ain't going to help. The new one's going to come in, she's going to be nice and fresh, good, but with time, what happens? She gets sick because the water's contaminated. If I'm sitting in that water and thrusting around, then I create a turbulence in that water. So we focus on the water. When the water, the environment, the relationship, the system gets healthier, better, the fish become healthier. So when working with teams, they inadvertently get coached, individuals get coached, and then they also learn about their system, how it works. And we see some plants in this picture, some lights, some rocks, and all these affect the environment. So sometimes when we're working with people in a team setting, and I work with couples quite a lot, if one member of the team comes to me and says, I need help, but then that person goes back to an environment at home which hasn't changed. So things are good when the coaching relationship is on, because he or she gets coached, goes home, works on it, but then eventually that relationship, that water at home, is not conducive. And that's what we as Oscars look at, that water, help people understand that, try and come in with your spouse, bring in the whole team, bring in those voices that are not being spoken, that are not being heard, to come and share and try and get us better. And we're going to do a demo. So our invitation to all of you is, we will have one coachee, one client, but everybody else can follow along. And the request is to have some positions for yourself, so that you're sitting in position 1, position 2, position 3, and 4 is back to where 1 was. Try and work with Refilwe as she works with Cassie. Be open. You don't have to answer anything for all of you, because this is one exercise that has really proven over time to really help people understand the concept of the system. I hope the others besides Cassie will be taking part, and that will all help us in the debriefing. Rafil, we're over to you.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Casey, for putting your hand up. And so the invitation is to think of a relationship that has a mild conflict. Don't think of a hot one, just a mild conflict. Do you have it in mind? I'm not going to ask you to share, so you just need to keep it in mind. And you don't need to tell the story. So what we will do, and we'll primarily do it in silence so that we don't expose the scenario. So if you can have it in mind, so I don't know if you can give me a thumbs up if you have a relationship in mind. Okay.
Got it.
All right, cool. So keeping that relationship in mind, so you know where the friction is, and you have a sense of what needs to happen. And yeah, we'll go through a moment now where we engage through that. So for the sake of confidentiality and just so that you are comfortable, we won't share, we'll do it in silence. But then the invitation is that when I ask questions, you can sit in and then have a conversation in your head. And I'm inviting not just Casey, but everybody else to do that. And you can maybe even jot them down if you want to jot down some of your notes, or just make a mental note to remember as well. So what I'll do, have you positioned yourself? So like Abbas had said, have position 1, which is where we're going to start. Imagine a triangle in essence. At the bottom of triangle is position 1 and position 2. You will occupy position 1 first, and then you speak to the other person that you have in mind that you have a relationship with. And then the third position maybe will be a bit backwards, where you are able to see the 2 positions at first. So where's your position 1, Casey? Okay, so I'll sit, I don't know how does it look, Abbas? Do I need to be this way or this way? I'm trying to emulate that I'm sitting alongside you. How does it look to you, Casey, now?
The other way.
Other way, okay, cool.
Yeah, so now it looks like you're both facing the same direction.
Okay. All right, so I'm sitting alongside you, not directly at you. So I'm like your friend, shoulder to shoulder next to you. So in your position with the relationship that you have in mind with the mild conflict, think of what do you feel being in the you as Casey being in that position. What is it that you're feeling, and what is it that you want? What do you feel, and what do you want? So, and the invitation is for everybody else to go along with it, embody the position fully, which is yourself, and seeing the other person next to you, facing you in essence, and thinking about the conflict that you're having now, or the disagreement that you're having at the moment. Let the other person know what is it that you're feeling and what is it that you want. And we'll go at the pace of Casey. Have you expressed yourself? What are you feeling? What do you want? Did you manage to connect with the person? Okay. And maybe at this point, you can let me know, do you feel like you've expressed yourself enough? Is there anything else that needs to be said, or are you ready to explore the other person's position?
I can move on, yeah.
You can move on. Okay, so now we transition to position 2. So if you can reposition yourself, I'll move alongside you as well. So from position 2, again, I'm sitting alongside you. Now you are no longer Casey. You are I'm not sure who you had in mind. Was it a friend or colleague? Who did you have in mind in the relationship?
Sort of a figure, an authoritarian figure in my life. Family friend, boss, stroke something, yeah.
Okay, can you give the person a name, not the real name, a pseudonym?
Will.
Well, okay, so now you're sitting in the position of Will. You are Will, and you please do your utmost best to embody Will as much as you can. It's difficult, but it's important. Embody him as much as you can. And now that you have embodied him, what does it feel as Will? You're speaking from I as well. What does Will feel? What does Will want? And maybe give me a signal once you've expressed what you feel and what you want to Casey, from Casey rather.
Okay.
Are you good? All right. So, yeah, let me ask you from this position if there's anything else. So you are good to nothing else to share. So we can go back to position 1. Okay. So I'm sitting alongside you now on position 1. So I just wanted to check in first before we move to the top of the triangle. Is there anything else that you need to acknowledge from what Will had shared with you?
Yeah, I want to counter argue back. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe let's do one more round in silence because we're still in silence. Answer the question again. What is it that you feel now? What is it that you want?
Okay.
From Casey's position, yeah. I get a sense that Will might want to respond. Is that the case?
I don't think so.
Not okay, no problem.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's still okay. All right. So which is good because it will take us into the next step. So remember, I asked you to imagine a triangle. There's Will and you at the bottom of the triangle, and at the top of it is what we call the third entity. We'll explain it in a position 3. So when you now look into position 3, please let go of yourself, position 1, yourself in position 1, let go of Will in position 2. So, and now you embody this space. This is where your relationship is, the analogy of the water from the aquarium, that way it sits, right? So looking at the 2, and maybe if I'll invite you to, let me invite you to extend your hands. You are now embodying a different entity, which is your relationship between Casey and Will. So what does it feel like watching the 2? Like you now looking into position 1, Casey, and position 2. What does it feel like looking at position 1 and 2?
Can I do that silently still?
At this point, I think you can share if you're okay with it, because we don't have the context. So you can share if you're comfortable to share. What does it feel holding the 2 of them?
Well, it feels like that there's been there was a misunderstanding of why one was acting in one way, the other misinterpreted it. And now that they've been able to express how they're feeling, there's at least there's at least an understanding of the other's viewpoint. There's not necessarily an agreement, but there's an understanding that that's where they were coming from.
And being in that position, how does it feel being there? Now realizing what you're realizing now, how does it feel?
It feels, yeah, it feels good that there's that first little opening, that first awareness.
All right, great stuff. And when you look at the 2 of them, I think you alluded to it as well, but then let me see if something new comes up. When you look at the 2, what do you know, sitting from the position that you're in, position 3, that they might not know? What is it that in the wisdom that you're sitting in, looking at the 2 of them and sensing the relationship, what is it that you know that they may not know?
That they both have valid points of views.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They both could be right.
They both could be right.
Yeah.
And finally, what do you need from them? Speaking from the embodiment of the relationship for the two of you, what do you need from the both of them?
I mean, I suppose I need willingness and trust that we're going to keep this going. And now I'm going back to thinking like a coach, right? But willingness and trust that this is going to take us somewhere positive.
Thank you. All right. So before we change position, is there anything else that needs to be said from the position that you're sitting in now? Anything else that needs to be expressed? Nothing. Okay. So now we're moving back to your original position 1. Okay. So here you back into, we call it position 4 in a sense, but then it's in a similar state where you were. But then now you're coming back with new insight, right? So in this position, what have you learned as Casey?
So I'm position 1, is that right?
Yeah, position 1/4. So it's 4 in a sense that you now have a new dynamic. You managed to visit 1, 2, and 3. So as much as you are back in your own position, it's with new awareness and insight. It's not the same as the original.
Okay. I mean, I did get a complete this conflict I've got. I just assume they're being a narcissistic, patriarchal man that just doesn't want to listen. And now I'm like, well, actually, no, I get it. They've got some issues they need to work through, and they're actually just trying to help. So I have a lot more empathy for them. Yeah.
Oh, great to hear. And is there any one action step that you'd like to take towards remedying the relationship or to actually
I'd like to talk to him some more because I still don't think he listens to me and respects me.
Okay, great stuff. All right, cool. So all the best, Casey, with that. I'm hoping that the conversation will become a fruitful one. Yeah, thank you very much for your volunteering and bringing yourself in fully as you did. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So I think we can come back to the model that we just expressed. If you can share, I can't remember the slide number now. And I'm hoping for the rest of you, you managed to go with it. The reason I made it silent is to protect confidentiality. Generally in a coaching space, obviously you'll hear. And the beauty of it is that we don't need much story. The person knows what's going on, so they can go through the motions themselves in essence. So for those who did participate, please let's come in and I'll explain the model and then we'll also share your experiences as well in plenary for those who managed to go along as I was coaching Casey. So the next slide from there, this is what we were explaining. So we start with, or should I take inputs first maybe before we do the model? Maybe we can close. Abbas, what do you think? So I'm co-creating in the moment.
Yeah, we can. Let's take some insights from everybody. What did you notice?
Okay, Lynn say that was quite illuminating for me. Participating as a silent coachee, I also arrived at empathy. Beautiful. Thank you, Lynn. Any other experiences?
From past experience.
Or maybe while people type, we can explain what we did. Yeah, please let's go into the next slide.
So this is what we did. Cassie was in position 1 as herself, and then she went to position 2 as Will. She embodied Will, and you notice how she's looking at Will. And then at position 3, and you notice that Refilwe asked her to keep her hands out, but sometimes it does get tiring. And that is like the position slightly at the back in position 3, holding the space of the relationship. And when we embody that, even just that slight gesture, of moving back and having the hands there, it helps us to understand and to try and get into the position of the relationship, of the system, of the entity. And then finally, Refilwe brought her back to position 4, yeah, and seeing how she can shift and what Cassie can do, because she's got wisdom from position, new wisdom, let's put it like that, from position 2 and 3, which she then brought over to position 4 herself. And then she said she'd like to have a talk with Will. So that was an action step. And you notice there's nothing Refilwe did besides asking her to take positions, ask a few questions. Cassie did all the work.
And it speaks to the relationship, the principle that we're talking about, that relationship systems are naturally intelligent, generative, and creative. But then also other principles come into play as well. So this is the core of what ORSC or relationships, organization and relationship systems coaching does. So this was an example with one person. Obviously, as you go through the trainings, it expands the skill to hold the bigger teams as well. It doesn't just end at an individual level. So there's advancement as with the trainings to hold the bigger spaces as well beyond the individual or the two partners in essence. So I'd like to hear how the experience was from others. So maybe we can get into plenary and you can answer any of the questions that are here. What did you notice? What shifted for you or what surprised you? So let's have a conversation around the experience we just had. And we'll read out more of the things as well. But then if you do have an environment to speak, please, it would be great to also hear your experiences if you're able to speak.
Diana said, I love its portability. Roxana said, getting to understand both perspectives, the power of perspective taking capacity, and the safety and support was incredible in Joki. The power of embodying the coaching mindset was clear.
Diane, I see your hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. It was a really insightful exercise, and I think it's a wonderful tool to add to a coaching toolkit, if you were to put it into that space. I am curious as to how you manage situations that are charged, where if it was myself speaking to this other individual and it feels quite charged, how do you de-escalate so that there is less of that charged emotion, but really getting to the deeper emotion that is showing up as defensive or wanting to attack the other.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we do have so it's not part of here, it's the recommendation is not to go with the very heated one like you're doing, but then there is a tool where it's you are able to go take the people through ventilation first, because you can't get to an agreement, an alignment if the heat is too much. So there's a process that we go through where we allow both parties to ventilate, get to a point where their emotions are down, and they're in a level where they can now come to an alignment. It's actually called alignment coaching in the training. So for the particular scenario that you just shared, this one may not be ideal. That's why I was asking for a mild one. But then there is a specific one where you first need to de-escalate as you are referring to, and there's a way of doing that, even with two people in the room, and getting them to come to an alignment in essence. Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered you, but then yeah, that's primarily, it's a different tool that you would learn for such hard cases.
Coletta also has her hand up.
Yeah. Hi, thank you very much. What I did notice was the power of the other person's perspective. Like when Casey moved from position 1 to the position of the other person, and then in the middle, like the observer or, outside of the situation, just being able to gain that perspective reminded me of this thing where from one side, a 6 looks like a 6, but from another side, it looks like a 9. So just being able to appreciate that was great.
Thank you for that. Ratilbe has her hand up.
Thanks. Sorry, it's Ritabile. Thank you for the exercise. I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
I
I
was
can.
I was wondering, and I think maybe Refilo touches that in terms of the ventilation first. What assumptions need to exist in this relationship to be able to go into this activity? I asked this from a place of um, in organizational dynamics. Sometimes there are issues of power, issues of rank, and other things that come and play a role in the relationship. And I don't know that people are always honest or intentional or can move from a pure place. So, what assumptions need to be in place for this to be effective? Thank you so much.
You want to take that, Ratilbe?
Okay, I can take Ritabile's one because I heard it, so I got disconnected again. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so the assumption is the willingness to solve the problem. So I think the one thing you need to identify first is the willingness for people to solve. Usually in a work setup, people are, because there's your work at stake and you need to deliver. So there's an element of understanding that I need to go beyond myself to get the problem solved. So yeah, but then the underlying assumption is the willingness to solve the problem and to have, and even though you may not agree, but then at least be willing to come to some form of and alignment does not mean agreement. We can align and still disagree on some aspects, but then at least be willing to resolve. So that would be the key thing. And even like when you look into power dynamics as well, I think with the training as you go further into the modules, because there's 5 modules in total, it also trains you in terms of how to be and work with rank and power, because it does exist. We can't deny that. So, but then there's a way of you as a coach, or whether you're training as a coach or facilitator, to see how do you manage that and how to bring it into the room for the benefit of the relationship so that it can move forward.
And we do help, of course, individuals who are sometimes reluctant. Metaphorically, we can ask them, look, it's like going into a shopping store to go and buy a new blouse, a new jacket. You don't have to buy it. You're just going to try it and look into the mirror. How does it look? So that's just helping somebody move from position 1 to position 2 and then eventually 3.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the time, and if you do have questions, we will share our contacts and you can reach out to us. And yes, thank you. We can move to the next slide.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the next step was looking into the mapping of ORSC competencies and ICF team competencies. So we'll briefly go through them without going into them into detail, but we just wanted to align and show you how the modality meets the ICF team competencies. So there is 8 in total, but then the way it's done in reverse, in essence, we kind of like foregrounded the ORSC competencies, but then next to the first column depicts the competencies that are aligned with the ORSC competency. So the first being self-awareness, system awareness and perception. So it's really looking into, and this is what helps to hold the system as an entity. So like we expressed before, we don't look into the individual parts in essence, but then we coach in the relationship system. And you can see the ICF competencies on the left-hand column, or the first column rather, that are encompassed in this competency.
Cultivates trust. Yeah, okay. So we won't go through each one of them. I believe if you do have questions, you can ask. And because there will be a recording, so you can then refer back to these slides. And yeah, that's about Next slide from us, please. Questions?
Yeah, I think we have room for questions in the remaining 5 minutes.
Questions, comments, please feel free. Lynn has turned on her camera.
Thank you so much, Bas, and thank you so much, Philby. I was just wondering if, as part of what you will share with us, it's how to get into this training as well.
Yes, we will be, Diana. That actually is the next slide. After we've taken
Okay.
all all questions, we'll be sharing our website and contact details.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
How would you compare your sort of approach and ethos to the systemic team coaching?
So this is also a systemic team coaching.
No, but that copyright systemic team coaching, the one that it's another ICF, so and it's labeled as systemic versus this, which seems to have a bit more of, I don't know. I've got my interpretation. I'm curious. If you don't know that one in detail, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware there are different team coaching training that are in offer, but then like at the moment, I'm not in a position to compare. I think because I've done ORSC training, I don't have exposure to the others. But what I think there's different approaches given the different modalities. So with us in particular, we focusing primarily on the relationship within the relationship system.
Okay.
And as we look at a relationship, we remember a relationship. I mean, when we look at that aquarium, where the aquarium is sitting also. The glass of the aquarium is also part of the equation, and the room where it's sitting in. All that come into play. For this exercise, we just use the third entity and we use the water, but all those others come into play in ORSC coaching when we're working with people. Anne has her hand raised up.
Yeah, thank you. This is related to Diana's question, and my network was a bit iffy, so forgive me if you've already answered this. Have you ever had an experience where it became very explosive? And I noticed, Rafil, where you asked Cassie not to think of a highly charged situation. Have you had an experience yourself in the coaching where it became explosive and somebody totally lost it when they were sitting in position two? And how did you handle that? Just from a practical example.
Yeah, from a practical, it can happen. So this was basically done to allow space so that it doesn't get too odd early on. But then it doesn't mean that relationships don't get to a point of being totally hot. So in that case, you do need to allow space for a person to calm down and de-escalate. So whether it's a matter, like even in a coaching session, if it comes to a point where there's no way of working together, it's okay to rather delay it. Either you give time for people to come out, to cool down, or even delay the session in that matter. But then there is a way of supporting them to de-escalate in essence. So because otherwise, if it's at that point when you are operating from the toxic environment, you are likely going to put petrol into the fire more, and then you end up not resolving issues. So it's best to raise the temperature and then take it down a bit to a point where at least there's a level of healthy conversation that can happen.
Like Rafil said earlier, we do something called alignment coaching. So when it's hot, we help people vent, bring them down a little so that they can then be able to move positions. Because when I am charged, personally, I'm not ready to sit in my wife's position, but I need to decharge myself. And another tool we use is we reveal the system to itself just by telling people, oh, we're noticing this is happening. and not about them, but this is, or I'm sensing that the water's getting charged. It's beginning to boil. What does that mean? What's happening for you? So it's all about the system, and in turn helps the two fish like we had in our picture. And somebody asked.
Thank you, Inaya. Thank you, Refilwe.
Yeah, the slide was up with our contacts. Fees, dates is all on our website, CRR Africa with a K, not a C.com.
Yes, yeah, and you can also find us on LinkedIn with the same name. Yeah, so that's how you can reach out to us, basically. So you can, yeah, welcome to engage more, even if you have more questions beyond this setup.
Lynn, over to you.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope you can see the appreciation coming through from participants in the call. We are so grateful for this learning. I personally was surprised by how I'd never considered the environment as a container that also creates the system, and that it would be necessary to incorporate that in coaching. So that was quite something. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. There are a few more questions. However, I think a number of them will need further information that you can share, and then we can share with the participants that joined us. So for those who've mentioned, asking about the course fees and perhaps just further details on that, would be happy to share that with you later on. Yes, and because time is basically run out, perhaps I can you can allow me to bring this to a close. So thank you so very much, Refilwe and Abbas. This was illuminating. We appreciated having you and your expertise that you shared so freely. We are very grateful. And so for everyone else here, thank you for participating with us over your lunch hour. We hope we made it, we gave you some deeper food that you can chew on besides what is on your plate or dish. We still have one more coming up tomorrow, and that is human-centered AI. And we also have the amazing session on Monday with Abraham Ogenge on leader as coach, beyond management and using leadership as a coaching standard. So please remember to register for that. With that said, please have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, and thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good afternoon. Cheers.